Alright. I think after about a week of curling up in that corner over there, yeah, everything has been perfectly fine for me. Just had to go through some little special stuff. Just some special stuff with rainbows and all that. Just trying to get my love for rainbows back, and yeah. Alright. And everything's been perfectly fine. So, yeah. Anyone else want to talk? No? Okay. I guess I'm the only one here. Yeah, today. I'm the only one here today. Oh, sorry guys. Hey everyone, Merson here. Welcome to some Fanfic Friday. This is just according to last week. This was the show where I pretty much tortured myself while reading your guys' requests. Because, why not? Because why not? Yeah. And this fanfic, the fanfic request actually comes from one of my friends. His name is Mr. Walkthrough 100 on YouTube. He actually does some walkthroughs on YouTube. Yeah, and he chose for me to read Cheerilee's Garden or something. Obviously, it's the pony fanfic. And yeah, and this was created by Unahim. I think that's how you pronounce that, or Unahim, Unahim. I don't know if the author's that crazy about that, or if the author's even watching this, then, and if he has a problem with that, he could probably contact me in the comments, and I'll apologize for that, for pronouncing your name wrong. So yeah. But here's some words of advance by him. It said, "It all began as a joke in a chat room. Someone said, we should totally write this, and so I did. I realized that's not much of an excuse for letting this loose in the world, but perhaps it'll make you judge me a bit more kindly when you get to the end of the story. Look back and wonder who would ever think of writing something like this. At least I hope it would. Yeah, I hope it would. Thanks to Cherilee for joking around and inspiring this fanfic with your ideas. Thank you as well for all the advice, ideas, and proofreading you continue to provide as time went on. Thank you, Javi, Quilava, and Orbush for all the proofreading you did. And thanks also to every member of the MLP Team Central Steam group who had randomly heard me talk about this and provided input. You all helped me in your own way. Okay. And apparently, Cherilee's Garden is supposed to be an extremely grim, dark, and it says in the parentheses, read gory, okay, story by Unahim. Unahim or Unahim or however you pronounce it. So, yeah. And apparently this is actually supposed to be a short story. Short. Let me check. It's supposed to be like... Is that number of words? 25,267 words. Short story my ass. So, yeah. Well, anyways, let's just read it. Alright. The entire theater complex was abuzz with the voices of 100 excited ponies, as Cheerilee peeked out carefully from behind the curtains hiding the stage. She saw rows upon rows of ponies sitting in the stands, or moving between them, talking to each other as they waited or tried to make one last trip to get some food and beverages before the show. She glanced quickly to the left, and saw that the musicians had already set up in the orchestra pits in front of the stage. They had only been needed for a few scenes, but Cherilee was still glad to have them. Seeing such a big crowd gathered there made her a bit nervous, even though this all had been her idea. Almost all of the seats were taken, and Cheerilee knew there were barely enough to accommodate the entire population of Ponyville. The show would be subjected to the scrutiny of a great many pony eyes indeed. She retreated back behind the curtains, hoping nobody had seen her. She felt that would have been somewhat unprofessional. Everything seemed to be in order as she inspected the stage for the last time. All the props and the equipment were beautifully made, straight from the hooves of the masters. Cheerilee had only needed to tell them what she wanted, but they had provided it with many questions without any questions, even though certain items must have been seen unnecessary. After all, they didn't know what she had in mind for this night, while she did. She was quite some of their she was quite sure some of their props would make even a professional theater jealous. The stage was divided into sections, each denoting its supposed location. This way, they didn't need time or backstage ponies to change the decor after each act, cutting down on time needed for scene changes. Cheerilee was a big fan of this system, as it meant there was one less thing for her to worry about. She turned back and headed to stage left, where her students were busy getting all dressed up. It was a total chaos, with bits and pieces of costumes scattered across the room like sprinkles on a cupcake. Oh god. At the center of this mess were the Cutie Mark Crusaders, as Cheerilee had come to expect. The fact none of them had sprouted a making trouble Cutie Mark yet surprised her more each and every day. Hey, that's my helmet, Scootaloo told Sweetie accusingly. Yours is way over there. No, it sure isn't, she replied as she lifted the knightly helmet off of her head and held it up for Scootaloo to inspect. This one is a horn for my horn, see? Are you sure it's my helmet? It ain't my helmet, Bloom said as she scratched her head. The king wears a crown, the two snapped back. Cheerilee sighed as she quickly glanced at her other students. Silver Spoon and Diamond Tiara seemed to progress orderly, if slowly, mainly due to how they could constantly flourish and admire each other after every article of clothing they put on, and after every single brush of their mane. Snips was, to her great surprise, ready and waiting. The fact is that Snails was backstage on tech duty might have had something to do with that, she mused. She remained confident they would make it in time, as she had the great foresight to start them all on preparations much easier than any pony would have thought necessary. She had come to know this little group throughout the months, and she was prepared for almost anything. Nothing could possibly go wrong today. She had put too much planning and work into it to see it fail now. She smiled and she had envisioned the peace, quiet, tranquility, and relief she felt when this was all over. She'd feel. Alright, students, she chimed. Let me just run you through the steps one last time. There was much groaning to be heard across the room, but Cheerilee wasn't taking any chances with this bunch. If you still have a part to play, but aren't needed this on set, come back here. If your role is all played out, exit the stage on the other side. You'll be able to watch the rest of the play from there. That is, if you didn't see it enough already. She paused for a moment to ensure every pony was still listening, and they all nodded. If you forget your lines, just improvise or pick up from the point in the script you do recall. If the pony you're playing with skips some of your lines, don't try to correct them. Remember, we may notice if some pony doesn't follow the script, but the audience won't as long as you keep the dialogue flowing. The fillies and snips nodded again. Cheerilee smiled at them. Good. Now get ready. I have to see to the opening of the show, so be ready and on set in no more than 10 minutes. She walked away as the young ponies got back to it, and Cheerilee thought they seemed to quarrel and delay slightly less this time, though that was probably just her imagination. The last one she had to check up on was Snail, whom she put backstage due to his absolute inability to do even one of the most basic of acting. I had something in my throat. All he had to do there was listen for certain cues and then carry out one specific action. She had even written all that down on a list that was easy enough to follow, even for him. Up to this point, he'd done okay during their practices, but you never know. She gave him a few reminders, and he reassured her that he wouldn't let her down, all the while wearing that idiot grin of his. Cheerilee sighed as she went back to the main stage, resigned to the fact that she'd have to leave this one up to fate. She was pleased to see the other ponies already gathered in position when she got there, all of them sitting around the U-shaped table at the open end which was pointed to the direction of the crowd. Apple Bloom was dressed up as someone of royal descent, a shining crown on her head and a regal mantle flowing down from her shoulders. To her right were the remaining two Cutie Crusaders, both dressed in exaggerated versions of knightly armor. Sweetie Belle's was colored in white as her own coat, while Scooter's was a bright red. Considering this a glaring difference in color, Cherilee wondered how they could possibly mistake each other's helmet for their own anyway. They looked heroic and chivalrous compared to the two ponies on the other side of the table, which was exactly the idea. Silver Spoon's costume was pitch black, while Diamond Tiara's was a deep purple. The style of their costumes were likewise different from the two knights. They both wore something more akin to the courtier's dress or a diplomat's gown than the warrior's armor. Mean looks being exchanged all over the table, and Cherilee couldn't decide if they were genuinely trying to get into character or if the natural animosity of CMC towards the other two fillies was at work here. The only acting pony who wasn't on set yet was Snips, but then again, he wasn't even in the next scene. Cherilee walked over to the left side of the stage and held the curtain aside for herself. The leader of the orchestra immediately spotted her as she emerged next to him and raised an eyebrow questioningly. She nodded at him and he nodded back, turning his attention towards the musicians, most of whom were friends or family of the actors. Cheerilee slipped back behind the curtains as she heard the first soft notes flout through the air. By the time she was back in the center of the stage, the music increased in volume and could be heard all throughout the theater. Conversations slowly dying down as every pony took their seats. Where am I at? I really hate this sometimes. Hold on. Where am I at? Ugh. Okay, right. Cheerilee looked up to see Snails, thankfully in the right spot between the stage lights, waving at her sheepishly. The ushers took their cue from the music, and slowly the lights in the theater hall died down. The pace of the music increased, and the feeling of anticipation intensified, until suddenly the curtain slid open a few feet, accompanied by the rolling of drums. She stepped forward past the curtains as Snails turned on the spotlight and aimed at her, baiting her in the circle of light as she moved. Despite the curtains being partially open, the darkness behind Cherilee revealed nothing to the audience. The music stopped and Cherilee's voice took over, ringing out crystal clear throughout the enormous room due to the perfect acoustics. Ladies and gentlefolks, it is with my great pride that my students and I welcome you to our very own play. We all worked so hard on this over the past few months, and we hope you will enjoy this as much as we enjoy bringing it to you. Of one thing I am certain, this will be an evening you can soon forget. Cherilee smiled widely despite herself. It was just the kind of opening she thought every pony would expect, but she was certain the last part would turn out to be true in more ways than one. And now, without further ado, I'm proud to announce performed in Ponyville for the first time ever, Reginald the Sly. The music exploded again during her last words as she disappeared behind the curtains, following them to the right side of the stage as they slid open behind her. The music died down once again as the spotlight was turned off and the main stage lights turned on, slowly illuminating the scene. Cheerilee could hear the play starting while she went down a set of stairs to get underneath the stage. The size of the stage itself was impressive. The area underneath was simply amazing. There was plenty of room to install all sorts of devices to spruce up any kind of play. The stage itself was thick and well isolated enough that ponies could work down here without disturbing the actors on stage. She had once started banging a metal pipe against some of the iron stage supports during the rehearsal, just to see if her students would hear it. They hadn't. She made her way in between the beams supporting the stage, as the various props and gadgets that reached down from the stage, heading to the prompt center corner. She finally arrived at a few wooden steps, which took her to a level halfway between the stage and the area underneath it, so that only her head peeked up above stage level. From there, she could watch the play from the same side as the audience, without actually being seen by the audience due to the way the prompt corner was built into the stage. From the audience point of view, it just looked like it was a slightly raised box. During some plays, a prompt would sit there and feed actors their lines if they forgot them, but the dialogue in this one wasn't overly complicated, and they had never rehearsed with the possibility of the prompt in mind. Cheerilee didn't think of any of them would even realize she was there. She tried to pick up the thread of the play, since she had obviously missed some of it on her way there. They seemed slightly further along Cheerilee than expected, but she didn't know if this was because of them rushing or leaving something out, or if she had just been walking slower than she thought she had been. She shook her head. It didn't matter. The scene wasn't important to her. A grin spread across her face as she sat and watched and waited for a scene that was. Apple Bloom slammed her hoop on the table as she dramatically looked first to the left of the table and then to the right. All this is meaningless. We still have to put a stop to this rain on the sly, and I don't care who does it or how, she said, trying her best to suppress her accents. She was most likely the one with the biggest grasp of the script, simply because sticking to her lines made avoiding her accents easier. As soon as she drifted from them even a bit, it was all over, and the accent was back in full swing. It sounded very odd out of the mouth of the king, to be sure. But my king, I maintain this violence is not the answer, Silverspoon said. You would just let your royal advisor and I work on a diplomatic solution and ensure that— No! The king cut her short. Do you think I know what goes on when I have my back turned? The two of you will stay right here, Sir Lancelot the Brave. I entrust this task to you. Find this villain and bring him back here, so he may face my judgment, she decreed, as she leaned forward over the table, pointing her hoop at Scootaloo before banging down the table again. Just leave it to me. I'll bring it back kicking and screaming, Scootaloo said as she raised the hoop enthusiastically, completely ignoring the script and the line she should be using. Fortunately, it came down to much the same thing, which was probably the only reason the Phillies couldn't hear Cheerilee grinding her teeth all the way on the stage. Scootaloo got up from the table and bowed down before her king before taking a few steps away from the table and turning around. The lights went out for that short moment, and when they were turned back on, only Scootaloo was still on stage. The king's table was completely deserted, and less lighting was focused on that area than before. In addition to that, Scootaloo was now carrying a white lance around with her, holding it under one of her wings. She started walking across the stage, taking roundabout routes around some set props and pieces of decor. These are the wildlands. There are no doubt. So where could that Reasley Reginald be? I heard he's sly as a fox, and true as it may be, he'll never outwit the likes of me. Speaking seriously, Sir Lancelot came up to a part of the stage that quite obviously represented the mountain with the mine entrance leading to it. The backdrop of the decor served as the mountain, while the shallow mine entrance was more of a little building on the stage, and expertly made. A small hooded figure suddenly emerged on the scene, wearing black robes. His face was hidden by the hood, but anyone could deduce it was Snips based on his height and the simple process of elimination. The new arrival casually strolled down the same path Sir Lancelot was currently on, and it wasn't long before they crossed paths in front of the mine itself. Halt! By order of the King Bert. King I. Oh, the King I. Get him. Sir Lancelot have come to put an end to Reginald's lie. Are you he? Scooter said louder than was necessary even during the play. Oh no, noble knight, I'm but a simple hermit, living in the mountains yonder. The robed figure replied as he motioned toward the mountains in the distance. Scootaloo scoffed at this and raised her chin. A little thing just as you would indeed not have been much of a challenge. You look like you would hardly stand upright during a gentle summer breeze. Now tell me quick, simple soul, if I wish to find this Reginald, where would I go? Ah, you are indeed fortunate, Sir Knight. The villain you seek has his lair in this very cave. The rogue pony motioned at the mine entrance would have nodded his head. In there? You sure of this? The brave knight asked as she peered inside. Of course. Why would I lie? You might have to leave your lamps behind now. That near passage is down there. The filly threw the stranger a few scrutinizing glances, then looked straight at the audience and shrugged. She placed her lance against the rocks outside and approached the entrance. If I don't find him in here, I'm coming back here to kick your flank, Scooter said, again interpreting the script liberally. As soon as she stepped into the darkness, Snip sprang into motion and pulled a rock away to reveal an old-fashioned lever hidden there, not unlike those used to change the direction of train tracks. Hey, it's a dead end in here! What are you playing at? Scooter's voice came echoing inside the mine. Upon hearing this, Snip pulled the lever into a neutral position, and at once the metal gate slammed shut over the entrance to the mine. Scooter's head reappeared in the light as she looked at the metal bars in front of her with fake astonishment, shanking them violently with her hooves. What is this trickery? Let me out right this instant, or the justice of King Golden Crown shall come down upon your head. Be whoever you may. The hooded pony let out a diabolical laugh as he approached the metal gate, standing next to it as he addressed the knight, so that he may still roughly be facing the audience as well. Be whoever I may. Why, you figured than I thought. Your righteous fall is, of course... I think that means fool. Hold on a second. Now I gotta go back. Great. I should have expected this. Should have seriously expected this. Oh. It was what it was. Okay. Wow. It was, of course, I, Reginald the Sly. Smith announced as he drew back the hood to reveal himself. Did you think I would not expect one of you to come here eventually, or that I would not recognize the great Sir Lancelot, greatest of all the knights in the realm? When she arrived upon my doorstep, it is your courage that I shall not be your undoing, he continued, followed by more laughter. Sir Lancelot shook the metal gate some more, then tried to lift it up, but she could not. You devil! You heathen! You dishonorable wretch! When I get out of here, it'll be off with your head! Reginald the Sly paused for a moment as he put both his hooves on the lever once more. Then it is fortunate, he said menacingly, that you'll never get out of here. ever again. He pulled down, and suddenly a great rumbling could be heard throughout the theater as the orchestra kicked in with an impressive display of percussive instruments. Sir Lancelot, much like the audience, recoiled and looked around fearfully, taking a few steps backwards into the mine, thus disappearing out of sight. There was a loud crash as a cloud of smoke or dust erupted from the mine. Once it cleared out, the music died down. The audience could see that the entrance of the cave again, but the opening behind the metal gate was now blocked by what appeared to be a wall of stone and rubble. Snip simply took the lance the knight had left behind between his teeth and walked off as the stage lights gradually died down and the curtains closed. Okay. The audience remained silent for a moment, surprised by this sudden development, but then suddenly started talking amongst themselves about the events of the play so far. The only one who seemed to have anything bad to say about it was Rainbow Dash. Really? Who thought it was pure folly to kill off the character of the most talented actor of the group so soon. Cheerilee left her spot in the prompt's corner as she went back under the stage. She headed in the direction of the faint banging noise towards the part directly under the mine. She couldn't help smiling at the thought that everything she had worked for all these months was finally about to pay off. The memories of how it all started involuntarily flooded her mind. And that's how Equestria was made. Cheerilee concluded her little history lesson. She turned away from the back blackboard to face the class, and was at once struck by how eerily unfamiliar the scene all felt. Ever since the board had decided to change up the groups and put her in charge of the fillies and foals who needed some extra attention, things have been taking a turn for the worse. She was used to seeing students off at the end of the year and welcoming new ones back to the beginning of the next. Of course, despite that, getting a new group assigned to her out of the blue just didn't quite feel right. Especially not this group. She surely thought as she gritted her teeth in pure frustration. It became at once clear that no filly or foal in the room had actually been listening to a word she just said. As per usual, instead Sweetie Belle and Scooby were having a hushed conversation while Silver Spoon and Johnny Charo seemed to be more inclined admiring each other's jewelry instead of concentrating on the lesson at hand. In the back row, Simpson sales were laughing at something only ever be amusing to the likes of them. A smile suddenly accepted in Cheerilee's face as she noticed that there was, in fact, one little filly who seemed to be paying attention. Oh, Appleblossom, would you mind explaining the importance of the day-night cycle to your less attentive classmates? Cherilee asked as cheerfully as she could manage. To her great surprise and even greater annoyance, Appleblossom seemed to veer up at the mere mention of her name, looking around the room somewhat panically. Oh, yeah, I suppose I can, let's see here now. Appleblossom said as she scratched her head. Night and day are important because if there were only one or the other, Idoluna Celestia would be very sad. She concluded with a smile, raising a hoop in a "that's it, right?" gesture. Cherilee gritted her teeth once again. Of course, that one filly who had been paying attention hadn't understood a word she'd said. As Cheerilee opened her mouth to formulate a chastening response, Scooby suddenly loudly interjected. That's stupid! Really, who could ever come up with a reason as ridiculous as that? Pointing at who toward Appleblossom. I don't see you coming up with a better answer either. I bet you don't even know what you were talking about. Appleblossom retorted just as loudly as she crossed her hoof in front of her chest. Oh yeah, then why don't I get better grade in the last test then? We all know you cheated. Did not, did so, did not, did so, did. Girls! Cheerilee shouted. This is neither the time nor the place to hold such pointless debates. You're here to learn and pay attention. This all goes for all of you. Yes, you too, Diamond Tiara. Don't look so surprised. She paused one moment as she met the gaze of every filly in full turn, as they were profoundly quiet for once. I thought the topic of today's class would be exceedingly interesting to your ponies, young ponies who, like you all, witnessed Princess Luna's return, a major historical event that shed much light on our country's history and origins. Oh yeah, Evelyn chimed in. She was stuck on the moon for 1,000 years, right? The moon? Scooter ignored. That's impossible. Not even Rainbow Dash could fly that high. Besides, I've been cheap for 1,000 years. The moon doesn't exactly look grassy from where I'm standing. At this, Evelyn remained uncharacteristically silent as she pondered the question. She could just eat cheese, right? The moon's made of that stuff. Scooter rolled her eyes as she planted her own hoop against her forehead. The moon is not made of cheese. Oh, it is so. Ahem. Came a more serene voice from beside the two, as Sweetie Belle moved her head closer to the pair. I'm sorry, Evelyn, but I have to agree with Scooter here. The moon can't be made out of cheese. By this point, the other fillies and foals had pretty much reverted to their own activities again. And Cheerilee stood, bumping her head into the blackboard, completely at a loss about how in the hay she could get through to these ponies. She stopped doing so as she heard Sweetie Belle's calm voice, and her ears rose up as she listened. And perhaps at least once, one of them had some sense in her yet. It can't be made out of cheese, Sweetie Belle stated comfortably, because if it was, the moon had been eating a huge hole in it by now. Oh yeah, Liam said, since dawned in her eyes. I suppose that makes sense. No, Cheerilee screamed as she turned around. It does not! It does not make any sense at all! The moon isn't even changed because, you know what? Forget it. Class is dismissed. You'll have the rest of the day off. Go! She pointed wildly at the door, not trusting herself to be able to keep calm in the company of these possible foes and fillies for even a moment longer. She thought she might start breaking things and just went on. All the foals and fillies in the classroom quickly got up from the desk, nearly galloping for the door. What's up with her? Lulu asked as soon as he got out of the room. But when they were still well within earshot of Cheerilee. I don't even know, Uncle Bloom said as she shrugged. They suddenly heard the telltale sound of shattering glass coming from the classroom behind them. They both looked back over their shoulder, looked at each other, shrugged, and continued on their way. Wow. Cheerilee paced up and down the length and width of her living room relentlessly. Pieces of splintered wood covered the floor, starting from at where her table had been, trailing all the way to the kitchen, where you could just make out the rough outline of what had once been one of the table's legs. Shards of porcelain and hardened clay were sprinkled around, and the place just generally looked like a hurricane had swept through it or two. Cheerilee stopped pacing around for a moment, but only so she could aim a few well-placed kicks at the remaining pieces of furniture in the room. Why? Why can't they get these ponies to behave? She screeched in frustration. And this, in fact, lay at the very center of this issue. Ever since she had earned her cutie mark, she had been able to bring out the best in ponies and watch them blossom, watch them grow. Yet there were a bunch of foals and fillies she'd been working on for over 6 months, and they haven't learned anything. Not a single thing. Oh. It ate at her confidence and kept her up at night. She lay twisting and turning as she wondered if she was losing her edge, if she had lost her gift. She had spent countless hours at the library Twilight Sparkle tended to, and under the guise of learning or for reading material that might interest her students. When Twilight had noticed she'd been looking mostly at books covering the subject of cutie marks, Cheerilee had told her what she was interested in solving the concern of the three of her pupils had self-proclaimed cutie mark insiders. But that wasn't true. The real reason was the one question constantly in Cheerilee's mind. Could cutie mark be mistaken? Is it possible that I never was good at teaching as I thought I was? That I simply had easy goals and abilities to work with before? Or if a cutie mark is accurate at the time it manifests? Can it perhaps grow and accurate over time? These questions and many more like it slowly pushed Cheerilee down into an all-encompassing feel of depression. She found her patience wearing increasingly thin and lost faith in herself more and more. It became hard to get up in the morning and harder still to bring herself to return to the classroom where she knew they would be waiting to turn another day into a living hell. For the last few nights, she had been lying awake in bed, staring up at the ceiling, wondering what it would be like to just let it all go. At times like that, she would sometimes tilt her head and look at the glimmering steel of the knife she had put on her nightstand, just in case she ever found the brief moment's courage that she needed to. Cheerilee walked over to the huge standing mirror in the corner of the living room, which, surprisingly enough, remained intact. She looked at her reflection of the cutie mark in the mirror. Those smiling faces, and seemed to laugh at her, mock her, belittle her for ever having had the audacity to think she was good at anything. No! Cheerilee yelled as she bucked her hind legs hard at the mirror, her hooves shattering into 1,000 pieces, which joined the mess on the floor. Cheerilee's eyes twitched slightly as she panted and stared out her window into a wild and overgrown garden. Normally be neatly trimmed and filled with beautiful flowers this time of year, but with her ever-increasing moments of depression and melancholy with Darby, not to mention all the trips to the library, she had not been able to tend to her garden as well as she would have liked. Vines and weeds choked the budding flowers that she had planted long ago, suffocating them and slowly squeezing the life out of their growth. She stared first at the garden and then at her cutie mark, and then at the garden once more. And suddenly it all became clear to her. It all made sense. It was not that she was a good teacher. Oh no. She had a gift. A great gift. She had always had it, and she hadn't lost it. She would never lose it. Her garden, her class, was overgrown by vines and weeds. Weeds that had to be cured from it. The flowers were ever to bloom again. Vines that had to be cut down and pulled and uprooted of all, if she were ever to take her responsibility as a teacher seriously. She quietly sat staring out at her window as night fell, the stars and the moon barely illuminating the darkness enough for her to see. She thought about what she would do next, what she could do. She realized the plans she was making were for the best and would eventually save more lives than they would ruin. But some ponies, most notably the families of the weeds that she identified, might not see it the same way. They wouldn't be able to comprehend the truth of the matter, not in the way she did. So she needed to be more subtle. She needed to be crafty, and yet something inside her didn't want all this to all go down quietly in the night. She deserved a show. She desired spectacle. She wanted to show everyone in Ponyville once and for all what a great teacher she was, and to assure them that she could deal with any problem that might come up during their fillies and foals education, even if the filly or foal in question was the problem. She struggled with these seemingly contradictory goals for a while before finally receiving yet another epiphany. Another glorious idea. I think she whispered quietly in the dark as she slowly gasped that knife. grasped a knife from the nearby nightstand and held it up in the light of the moon. It's time for another school play. She started giggling as all of her fears, doubts, and other dark emotions burst forth into a vortex of madness. She snatched up a picture frame from the desk next to her. The picture it contained had been taken just earlier than that month. It was the obligatory teacher with her class photograph they made every year. She took it out of the frame and lit one of the candles in the room, surprised that she still had one that wasn't too broken. As the little flame illuminated the room, she carefully held the picture. The flame burned together and started to consume the picture, looking at the hooves and the folds and fillies whose images had been captured on it. For the first time in 6 months, Cheerilee just couldn't stop smiling. Scooter took a few steps backwards into the darkness and met surprise. Oh, this is back at the okay, preparing for the trap door to open underneath her. She dropped down with great agility as the floor disappeared and landed in some sort of metal cage a few feet lower. A cloud of dust would blow down the line entrance above her as the metal press came down to fill the mine and cover the entrance. Scooter knew that for the audience it wouldn't look like metal at all. They decorated outside with what would appear to be stones and rocks. Ow! She grimaced as she landed. The bars on the bottom of the cage were fighting on her into her hooves. She looked down and frowned. There used to be a large piece of wood covering the bottom of the metal cage, but it was nowhere to be found. There was a great round plastic tub underneath the cage, but Scooter couldn't remember seeing before either. Then again, she mused, the wooden plank would have naturally kept it out of sight. She quickly tugged on a few key strings in her outfit with her teeth, undoing the knots one by one. Since these knots kept the entire outfit together, it wasn't long before she could simply take it off. It looked very cool, but it sure was uncomfortable to move around in. She decided to just leave the outfit there for now. After all, she wasn't able to get back to the dressing room until the show was over, and she sure wasn't dragging it around with her. She reached out to the cage door and attempted to push it open, but to her great surprise it wouldn't budge. She pushed against it for a while, and she threw her shoulder against it, which she instantly regretted, but it was still not open. Turning around, she bucked her hind legs at the door and attempted to force it open the lock, but she might as well not have bothered. What she ended up doing was sending some banging noise echoing throughout the area. Dumb door, if I find out who locked this thing, I'm going to... She hissed in frustration when Cherilee suddenly emerged from the darkness. School's head about level with hers for once. Cherilee simply smiled at the bully as she approached his cage, not saying a single word. Miss Cherilee, I wasn't anything bad, I'm honest. I was just that I'm going to be very upset because the pony knocked the door out, that's all. She said sheepishly. At least Cherilee would probably be able to get her out of there. She started to feel somewhat uncomfortable as Cherilee just stood there moving. Her features still stirred by the darkness and reigned supreme under the stage. Oh, I get it. It was a joke. That's great, Miss Cheerilee. You obviously haven't lost your touch for praise yet. Now, can you please let me out of here? No, young Philly asked excitedly, but not sure what to make of the mayor's strange behavior. Cheerilee nodded enthusiastically as she stepped forward and a wide, truthful grin split her face. Something about the look in her teacher's eyes shocked Cheerilee deeply. It felt as if she saw nothing but hatred and contempt in those big green globes. Cheerilee reached out for the lever on the wall and pulled it down slightly. And suddenly the mass of metal above Scooter's head started to inch its way down toward her in steady pace. The little filly suddenly didn't feel comfortable in the cage anymore. She let a little squeal of terror. Wait, what's going on? Please stop! This isn't funny anymore. Cheerilee, I want to get out. Let me out. Cheerilee brought her face close to the cage and stared gaily, relishing in the terror she was inflicting upon this one of the little monsters she tormented her for so long. I thought you wanted to get out of the cage. This'll get you out, little weed. Just watch. Scooter's brave facade finally broke. Tears started streaming down her face. No, you can't do this. Everyone, no, they'll find out. Applewood's gonna sweep out. Look, work for me. And ha! Cheerilee interrupted the frantic Billy. She burst into genuine laughter. You fall. This friend of yours are next. As for the others, you don't be worried about that, okay? You have different problems. Cheerilee nodded up at the wall and iron soap reaching down. There were now less than half the original amount of space left between it and the bottom of the cage. No! Cheerilee screamed as she lifted the front legs above her head, pushing up against the metal, fighting the crusher against the bottom of the cage. The crusher protested with some metallic screeching noise and then strutted for a moment, and almost came to a complete stop. With the machine pushing down at her pushing up to halt the progress, the pressure in the hooves that remained on the bottom guarded the cage and the nurse. She whimpered as the thin, rectangular metal strips slowly started to crack them. She didn't dare move for fear of being crushed. The machine did not relent, and the cracks grew wider and wider, making her pant with pain as Cheerilee stood and watched. Finally, she let out a scream as her hooves broke and the thin bars get driven up to her flesh. Blood slowly started to boil up around the metal and dripping down into the tub underneath. Scooter bit down into her lip as she panted from immense pain and washed over her as the front bars broke her skin, tearing and pulling at her flesh. Please, please stop, please. I'll be good, I swear. She managed to get up between the gasps of air and because of pain that was escaped from her mouth. 8 months! 8 months! Suddenly screeched out of fury, abruptly switching over from laughter to anger and blink of an eye. That's how much time you had to show a glimmer of intelligence, and you failed. In a fit of rage, Cheerilee pulled down the lever a bit more. The metal press instantly started to push down even harder, trying to crush Scooter even faster. For the good of all the flowers in the world, weeds like you must die! Cheerilee tried to cry out as the metal bars were driven through the fleshy parts of her hooves. The metal angrily coming to a grinding halt against the bones in her legs, but instead the screams of all that came out of her mouth was a disgusting gurgling sound, followed by the waves of bile and vomit as the unearthly pain turned her stomach upside down and nearly made her black out on the spot. The foul and sour substance splattered all over the floor and the cage and dribbled down Scooter's body from her mouth, joining the streams of blood as they tumbled into the tub below. The only thing keeping her conscious was the copious amount of adrenaline her body was pumping into her system in the desperate attempt to try to survive the ordeal. Cheerilee took a few quick steps back and the vomiting started. To avoid getting any of it on her hooves, that would be simply distasteful. The machine continued pushing that Scooter down as she already had to bend slightly forward as she began hysterically pushing up on her shoulders and head as well, grinding her hooves into the metal below even more. Her legs shook violently as she knew they would be unable to take the pressure any longer. The bars of the cage floor ground against her bare bones as they slowly began to crack. Scooter screamed in wordless terror, pain, and hysteria once more, her mind filled only with a red-hot feeling of pain and menacing, not only from her heavily mutilated hooves, but also from the rest of her body. Her throat was raw and coarse from all the screaming and vomiting, blood dripping out from the corners of her mouth and upper legs. shoulder and neck were all feeling the strain from pushing up against the metal. Suddenly, the strain became too much for her little pony legs. As the bones in her hooves snapped, metal strips shot up through her legs, and metal plate crushed her down. Young, soft flesh like butter, and splitting her overstretched bones neatly in two. A new pain 100 times worse than all that came before. Send her to a new fit of vomiting. Oh, that would come out with the puddle of blood that she sweat all over herself. God, her body couldn't handle the sensory overload. She teetered on the brink of a blackout, but every new bone and snout pulled her tight right back out of the sweet embrace of darkness. And the blunt metal bar shot up through her so fast now that there was hardly any that there were hardly at any time to fall unconscious at all. Blood splattered down into the tub where it pooled into a lake alongside the various and their bodily fluids, with more blood leaking out of Scooter's legs. She were an open bottle of tomato juice someone was holding upside down. The room swam before her eyes, and she was too weak to continue screaming. Her forelegs started to give out and should soon lose strength as she started to drift out into consciousness of Ernest. Then suddenly, after what seemed to Scooter as a century of sort of metal broken through her first bone, although it was in reality only a few moments, the metal plate stopped pressing down and actually looped back up a little bit as Cheerilee pushed the lever up, an insane look of glee in her face. Scooter, now unable to brace her weakened body against anything as the metal plate slid out of reach, tumbled the trackers into the bottom of the cage, and metal bars were still stuck halfway up her legs. Holding them into place, the weakened legs couldn't handle the strain as she toppled backwards into a physically impossible position, and with a horrendous scream and torrents of blood, Scooter's legs simply broke off in the middle, also some ligaments tearing off the bones that broke right in the midpoint of the metal bars it created. She thought the worst pain had been over, but for the second time in a few minutes she was proven wrong. Getting worse and drew. And this was it. She almost barked of blood all over herself again. She looked down at her mangled legs and so attached, as well as a bloody stump sticking up in the cage, above the cage floor. She simply didn't seem to have any in her anymore. Her body even going pale due to copies of one blood she had lost and she was still losing. She'd probably die within the next few minutes, even if a severely equipped medical team appeared on the scene right then and there. Oh my god. Cheerilee stood with her left hoof on the lever, pounding heavily and shaking with pure excitement, completely unable to keep the ecstasy she felt with her as her twisted dreams finally coming true out of her voice as she spoke. Any last words, my little weed? Sorry. Excuse me. Jeez, I don't want to die here too. Oh god. I drank that the wrong way. Scooter could hardly hear her for the ungodly moments of pain she was in. As death started to wrap her in its cold embrace. Her body had lost too much fluids by now, and she couldn't even manage to cry as she thought about what she would like to say to Rainbow Dash, like being sorry that she'd never grow up to be the flyer, that she would never grow up to be the flyer Rainbow Dash thought she could be. Instead, all that came out of her mouth was a low gurgling and another pool of blood. I guess not. Who ought to hear it anyway? Cheerilee yelled almost hysterically as she pulled the lever completely down. Little Philly saw the metal plate storm down at her like a battering ram. Her body was too weak for the bigger reaction, and her feeble attempt to raise her front hooves up to shield her head. This sickening crash, the machine pounded down into the belly, driving her entire body to the battlers below. I seriously can't handle this. I really seriously can't. The crash was so sickeningly loud that even Cheerilee closed her eyes and turned her head away for a moment. As she brought up a hoop protectingly, she could feel warm blood splatter against her face and body, and opened an eye attentively. The metal press now filled with the entire cage, and Scooter was nowhere to be found. Blood spatters could be seen for a wide radius around the cage. Blood dripped down the side of the tub and made puddles on the floor. With her legs shaking in excitement, Cheerilee approached the tub, taking care of not to step into any of the puddles. For a moment, she just stared down into the hanging lake, amazed that there had been so much stuff packed into a tiny Philly body. Various chunks of flesh and bone floating around in the grotesque sea like tiny boats. Cheerilee angled her head to look down at the bottom of the cage and saw little bits and pieces of glue still trapped between the metal plate and the bars of the cage. But apart from those, the huge scarlet stain on the metal, no sign of the Philly ever having been in the cage remained. Cheerilee licked her lips while surveying the scene once more, but suddenly stopped as the bitter taste of iron entered her mouth. She had forgotten she got blood all over herself as well, but it tasted surprisingly good. This must be what they meant when they talked about the sweet taste of vengeance. Cheerilee mused as she licked her lips and cheeks clean. She spotted Cheerilee's eyes floating around in the lake of blood, staring up unseeingly at the ceiling. She couldn't help but crack up and laugh hysterically, even as she went up to get cleaned up. Even long after she got the very last splatters of blood out of her coat, the visible ones anyway. She just couldn't stop. She hadn't seen something this amusing all year. That's horrible. Cheerilee finally got back to her spot in Punk's corner, so giddy with excitement. She stared at the stage without clearly seeing it, and it took her a few moments to notice she hadn't started paying attention to the play at all yet. She was just savoring Scootaloo's last moments in her mind's eye. She shook her head a few times to get a grip, focused on the stage in front of her. Once she did that, it didn't take long to figure out the scene that she was currently on, and Cheerilee had to suppress another rush of excitement. She had realized that the next playtime wasn't that far off. She saw Silverstone in her black Robles outfit and Danny Tiara in the dark purple gown of the royal advisor approach Reginald's cottage. Based on where the scene fit in the story, that meant Cheerilee had missed the scene involving lots and lots of broken lands being delivered back into the royal court, as well as the ones where the king decided who to send next. Cheerilee didn't mind having missed these at all. They didn't interest her. She only cared about what was to come next. The pink mirrored was very happy with the red set pieces that formed Reginald's cottage, considering them to be very neatly made. Instead of the actual closed-off building, only the black back wall and left wall had been put into place, giving the audience a clean view of the building's interior. She didn't want to agonize her own work, but she was quite proud of the way in which she made this all fit together through the plans and instructions. With care and caution, my dear Dimas. Of course, the great Philly with a sober name said, "That's the only way to deal with a pony like him. If you want to harbor any hope in coming out on top, that is." The white and purple maid nodded sort of thoughtfully. But of course so retired. I'm well aware. And of course, in our case, even more thoughtfulness is required. We're not simply telling you this and no at all. After all, the two ponies exchanged a grin as they walked down the path toward Reginald's front door, which was placed in the wall on the right side of the house. Of course, the wall itself hadn't been built on the stage, but the audience got an idea behind it easily though. The pillars nodded back and forth in front of the door until the silver tongues finally leaned forward in the sky and knocked at the door. The audience could see a small door open at the back of Reginald's house, and the antagonist himself stepped through it into his living room, carrying a teapot which he put down on the table in the center of the room, next to the 3 cups that were already there. Visitors at this hour of night, I wonder who it could be. The villain, said louder than this, withdraw if needed. The fourth wall breaking wink at the audience. Fourth wall. He strolled down into the door and opened it, but he left the door chain in place. Yes? He asked while peeping into the small opening he had created. I wasn't expecting any visitors today. Forget the pleasantries, Reginald dear, Maid fully said. We know who you are. We know you know who we are. Diana finished the sentence of her companion. Reginald's frown was completely visible, even to the people in the back of the ear. Then why not? Surely you don't believe I let you in just so you can apprehend me. Their Phillies laughed. Apprehend you? No, my dear, you have it all wrong. We didn't want to apprehend you. We want to work with you, to take care of the king, once and for all. Phillies remained silent for a moment before Diana added, we know you're a reasonable guy, Reginald. This would be beneficial to you as well. Reginald closed the door and took the chain off before opening the fully. Alright, come in, he said as he walked to the table in the middle of the room. He grabbed the teapot that stood there by the ear, carefully pouring tea into the 3 cups on the table. Let's hear what you have to say then, he said as he started sipping from one of the cups. The other 2 gathered on the table as well, each in front of one of the 2 silver cups. Well, each of 2 cups, the other 2 cups, which they started with suspicion. Stared at. How exactly do you know you haven't poisoned these? Silver Tongue demanded to know. How do you know that I didn't poison the tea I prepared without knowing you'd come in and I'm drinking it myself? Reginald mockingly replied. The other 2 seemed to relax at this train of thought. Sipping from their mugs slowly, it was a rather long trip, and the ladies of style may yet enjoy their daily cup of tea. Diana opened her mouth to start negotiations when she suddenly felt silent and stared at the cups on the table. 3 cups. If you didn't know we were coming, why are there... She started, before pressing a flute up against her head. She took it unsteadily, stepped back from the table. Oh, stars! You did poison us! But you drank... How? Lips said, shaking hands with she sank to her knees. It was in the cups, not in the tea. Sniffed Fred as he took another sip. The 2 fellows were swaying about furiously now, until Diana suddenly blurted out, Wait, my head! It was really poisoned? Towards both she and Silver toppled on the ground. Yeah, I really poisoned it. Snap said confused. It wasn't in the script. He walked over to the metal ring in the floor and grabbed it between teeth, pulling it up to reveal a trap door. He dragged it to perfectly still Phillies into the trap door one at a time, throwing them into a hole before closing it again. No. She dragged it perfectly. No, I already did that. Before closing it again. And there they'll rot. Reginald doesn't deal with traitors. They're too traitorous. He mused as he exited the stage through the door in the back of his house, stage lights slowly going out. I can already tell what's going to happen. By the time the curtain closed and the lights above the audience went on to signal the slow break, Cheerilee was already long gone from her seat in the prompts corner, making her way to the unknown destination of the stage. Spoon woke up feeling groggy, her senses still blurred by whatever was in those cups. She was vaguely aware of the well-lit circular room, with lots of metallic objects casting mirror reflections everywhere. She tried moving her head, but found to the great shock and surprise that she could not. The sudden panic she felt helped her clear her senses in a matter of moments. Her sight quickly returned to her. Fear gripped her when she found that she could not move her legs, except from the front left one, which she could move slightly. It felt as if some metallic bands anchored them into the ground, and something was likewise keeping her from closing her eyes. The taste of iron filled her mouth, as though being held open by some sort of cylinder. Her tongue rested inside the cylinder, and she could not move about freely. The fact that she capitalized on as she explored the inside. But it wasn't solid by any means. It felt more like a frame that held it in the cylindrical shape. But she couldn't bite it down to it and spit it out, no matter how hard she tried. Attempts at moving her body proved pointless as well. Apart from the bands around her hooves and whatever was keeping her head in place, something was pulling her up from the ground in her middle, so she couldn't slouch down either. Realizing she wouldn't get out of this predicament on her own, she looked around the room as best as she could. The first thing she noticed was a grotesque machine of massive metallic arms, wheels, and various tools which extended from the central black box. It seemed to be on the rails. Silver noted some of the rails and towards her as well. She couldn't look down to see where they ended. The machines used her function. She quickly lost interest. It was then that she finally saw Diamond Tiara, a few meters to the right in the machine, that trapped in much the same way she is. That was to say, her hooves had been attached to the ground with a metal clamp, and she had leather bound around her middle as well, which was attached to the ceiling with chain. She wasn't wearing a costume anymore, which made Silver realize she couldn't feel hers in her body either. On top of all that, there was a glass wall all around Tiara, with the Cheerilee standing in the center of the glass cylinder. It seemed like the whole construction could be lifted up out of its place by a chain connected to the top of the glass wall as it only reached halfway up to the ceiling. Spoon also spotted several tubes and hoses opening into the cylinder, but nothing seemed to be coming out of them for now. Tiara's head was fixed to look at the great Philly's direction. Freaky little clumps held her eyes open. She didn't appear to have anything in her mouth, though. Silverspoon didn't think she was even awake yet. Spoon's eyes slowly started drying out, but before the sensation could even become bearable, some kind of liquid dripped down into her eyes, moistening them up. Silver shuddered to think about the reasons anyone could have to strap her into a so elaborate a device. But she managed to keep her calm. It was possible that things had accidentally been poisoned, and this was a high-tech medical facility after all. She didn't really believe in herself, but the thought did keep her from screaming right then and then. The thought and the thing in her mouth, what she was forced to admit. Right when Diamond Tiara woke up, she did not seem to possess Silverspoon's calm position. She immediately shrieked, and then when she found out she was being held in a roll right in the glass bowl, until her eyes fell on the great Philly a few meters away from her. Silverspoon, what's going on? Where are we? Get me out! She cried. Silver tried to respond, but the reply wasn't that much use to Diamond. Finally awake, I see, said a calm voice, accompanied by footsteps. Miss Cheerilee stepped into the room. Diamond immediately started calling up for her help, but Cheerilee paid her no heed. She seemed far more interested in Spoon and the machine in the middle. So let's get started, shall we? She started as she walked right in between the two boys, pulling down a lever on the machine's right side. At once it dreamed of life, a little light flickering on and all around it, and metallic arms strung down and moved into place. Cheerilee walked over to the great bully, who was now positively terrified, and whispered into her ear, "You have no idea how much research and measuring you up went into this. But I catch it all right. You'll see." "What do you mean?" the bully asked in confusion, but she simply took her head and smiled as she took a few steps back. "Oh, and if you feel around that pretty leg of yours, you should find a button. Just hold down until if you had enough. But I warn you, your friend won't like it," Cherilee said, giggling girlishly at the end of the sentence. Uh, Spoon tried to follow her teacher with a gaze, both being both utterly confused and terrified at the same time. But Cherilee quickly disappeared from her small field of vision. Her attention was suddenly grabbed by the strange device in the center of the room as it started rolling towards her. At first the silver filly just watched in bewilderment, until she spotted one of those robotic arms lifting a metal wheel up to the same height as its left eye, keeping it there as it advanced. If her eyelids wasn't already artificially being held open, her eyes wouldn't have grown wide from fear when she realized what was about to happen there. "What? Something good for you?" I think that's probably yeah. She begged, getting more spit out of her mouth than intelligible words. She saw the tip of the needle slowly coming close to her, and she felt tried to whistle be freezing bond. She came to the same conclusion as she before. She never got free on her own. She racked her brain and her way out of the stone as she started to panic until she suddenly remembered Cheer's words. She turned around with her left foot and made sure that she bumped into a slightly elevated point on the floor. The button. Now that she pushed down into it, the needle came to an immediate halt about 5 centimeters from her face. She sighed with relief, but that had been a lot easier than she expected. Maybe it was a test, and now that she pressed it, surely would. She never got to finish her train of thought as Diamond Tiara's terrifying scream pierced her eardrums. Looking past the machine-like eyes, Spoon focused her gaze on the dark tank her friend was in. Some kind of clear liquid was now flowing into the tank from the various pipes and hoses inside, and was slowly spreading over the floor. Silverspoon quickly drew the connection between her pressing the button, the machine stopping, and the liquid starting to fill up the tank. But compared to her losing an eye, she thought Diamond could afford getting that for a while. The light pink pony didn't seem to agree, and she screamed fearfully, "Spoon! Help! Get me out of here!" Spoon rolled her eyes as fast as she could at this. What she could do to help anyway. The level of the water in the tank kept rising, as it finally got high enough to touch the bottom of the Diamond's light. So Silverstone realized her mistake. She watched in terror as her friend screamed in pain, a clot of red blood diffusing into the clear liquid as it ate away the village flush. What Spoon assumed to be water was obviously acid in some description, but it was a safe bet that Diamond had smelled that ages ago. The corrosive liquid continued to pour into the glass tank, chunks of flesh already coming loose from just above Diamond's hooves as they soaked into it. The white of bone became visible quickly, and Tiara screamed and begged for Cheerilee or Spoon, any point really, to please make it stop. "Do you like it? They use that stuff to clean carcasses, you know. Get some nice skeletons to display in the classroom," she overheard a teacher say that from behind her. She reluctantly looked at the needle, still suspended in the air in front of her, and took a deep breath, summoning all her courage and tears rolling out of the corner of her eyes. She slowly sealed her hoop off the button. At once the machine buzzed to life again, full of acid from the tank top. Diamond Terror shrieked heartbreakingly for a while longer, or dying down to sobbing as the last piece of flesh touching the luxuriant liquid got melted right off the bones. He got nothing but bone left up to 2 centimeters from her hoop up. A small stream of blood was flowing down from the acid into the acid from the frayed and disfigured stump of meat just above it. Scarlet clouds that floated around in the viscous liquid vanished quickly as well. Apparently no more resistant to the corrosion that Diamond's flesh was. Swoon's lips trembled as the needle approached her eye, filling more and more of her field of vision. And after what it seemed like an eternity, it finally reached its destination. The silver belly felt the pressure in her eye increase for a moment, for the needle suddenly popped it in, and the pain exploded inside her head. She let out an unintelligible gargled scream of pain receptors she had never made. She resisted, bombarded her mind with warning signals, telling her something was wrong, not knowing or caring about the fact that she was powerless to do anything about it. The left side of her vision first colored red and then suddenly winked out, as half of her world darkened forever. Serviceman momentarily forgot her pain and wondered why she had never realized how much her sight meant to her until that moment. Agony once again washed over her as two little hooks sprung out of the tip of the needle, anchoring themselves to her eyeball. The needles started to spin around. Silver almost threw up right there as she felt her eyes start to turn with it. Hoarse cries echoed throughout this room as the device put its appendage around faster and faster, running her optical nerves up like a bored child with a piece of string. Painful sensory overload was too much for the little holiday fare, and shame got added to her torment as she lost control of her bladder. The needle suddenly drew back, taking her eye with it, and she felt warm blood drip down her cheek. She wanted to scream and push her hoop against her mouth into the socket, but her stomach protested too much that she needed all of her willpower to not throw up over herself, and even her left leg was too restricted to get her hoop all the way. She panted heavily into the metal cylinder as sweat dripped down her body, and the machine withdrew slightly, holding up the skewered eye that had once belonged to her like a trophy. At that point, Silverspoon noticed Tony Turner looking at her from the corner of her eye, and friend looked sick to the stomach that she was feeling herself. The Silverspoon saw yet another emotion in the pink boy's eyes, hope and gratefulness. She reminded herself that this suffering might yet save her friend. Perhaps Cherilee would let Cheerilee go if she just persevered, and she built up an iron fortress of resolve which melted like ice before the sun. She saw the machine draw closer once more. It replaced the sun with a needle in favor of one, with 4 sharp blades coming together into a tip like some kind of drill. The menacing contraption started to spin around at high speeds, accompanied by a low buzzing noise as it drew even nearer. To take from long to figure out that it wasn't aimed at her remaining eye, though with only one eye left, she found it somewhat hard to determine its trajectory, so that she followed as best as she could and did not move. The reason for the cylinder mouth became chillingly clear. She hesitated for a moment, but just before the blade entered her mouth, she pressed down into the button again. And at once she could hear Diamond scream. That's the very first drops that flowed out of the pipes, raising the level of vital enough to contact with her soft, tender flesh, and started to suffer pain all over again. Silverspoon! Silverspoon! She cried, apparently in too much pain to think of anything better. Thompson tried clear tears from her wide-eyed, bloody ones in her socket. She sobbed, "Sorry, I'm sorry," over shaking in disgust at her own cowardice. Diamond's flesh slowly got consumed by a vicious anger. Pain grew at Cheerilee a few more tricks up her sleeve. A loud banging noise announced the arrival of Flower. Flower? Oh, the four small but heavy balls which came rolling through as of yet unused pipes, and were plummeted down into the vast below. Instinctively, innocent looking liquid flashed up around them, raining down upon the purple and white maned pony from every direction. Small drops fell down to her back, melting holes right to her coat and skin, leaving tiny bloody craters behind as a sort of grotesque parody of a lunar landscape. At the same time, a bigger wave of the stuff crashed down into her right flank. She marks melted away and the electrical dug into her bloody blisters, lying up around the edges of the wounds. She instantly felt an extreme burning sensation on her left shoulder as well, but by far the worst was the splash that hit her right in the face. She shrieked like a banshee, and it burned as the acid burned right through her right cheek, exposing muscles and white bones and offering a view of the inside of her mouth. In a matter of minutes, her experience changed from that of a cute feeling to that of a monster, with half of her face missing and the rest of her body covered in bloody blisters, craters, and sores, not quite unlike how some ponies might picture a zombie. In addition to that, the acid had kept melting away the flesh from her legs as well, having reached up to that just under her knees now. Seriously, couldn't bear it any longer and pulled hoof off the button, determined to never press it down ever again, no matter what the cost. She crawled back in her fear, and the blade started spinning again. It approached her. She never liked the name of her character in the play Silvertongue, and that was exactly how she viewed herself. She had always thought she had the knack of using words to suit her own purpose, and perhaps had gone far into diplomacy, business, or something like that one day. She thought it likely that Cherilee knew this as well, and didn't doubt. This was all some sort of sick joke to her. Okay, she couldn't understand her teacher's reasons or motivations, and in just a few piled seconds she'd never been able to ask. What? She tried screaming it out. No answer ever came as the blades passed her lips. Oh shit. I just realized. A blood storm of cuts and slices rained down upon the tip of her tongue. As the blades tore into it. The hot-filled, oh god, hot blood-filled mouth swept down her throat and dripped down her chin as she tried to scream. She only managed to produce a disgusting, wet, gurgling noise from the back of her throat. Her body struck as her one remaining eye rolled back in her head. Her eyes continued to bloody work. The events slowly, and this moment seemed slower still as she experienced pain of such of magnitude that the loss of her eye paled in comparison. Bit by bit, her tongue got shredded. The remaining stump of it failed, flailed around wildly as she tried to keep it out of reach. But the blades were everywhere. Suddenly, the machine stopped and pulled back. Okay, having made a minced meat out of every last part of the silver tongue. The shearing needles are poking around her mouth turned into an intense but monotonous pain, which was only broken by the pounding sensation she felt where her tongue had once been. Even in her dazed and sickened state, she felt the acute need to breathe, as the blood was flowing down her throat and the deep down her. The hacking cough and a surge of energy born in desperation, she managed to force the blood up and out of her throat, making it spill out of her mouth and cascade down her belly like a waterfall. Dangerous about that. A stabbing sensation, an empty socket, and pounding of her in her mouth. Boone could barely think straight anymore. It was as if pain had become her only reality and blocked everything else out. Excuse me. She tried to speak, but could produce only a low, guttural sound, which would have made her evidence of Diamond's constant moans and sobs. Were she still able to consciously register them? Cherilee noticed the lack of resistance in Silver and was thoroughly disappointed. Sure, the crying and moans that she made was amusing, but it wasn't quite what she had been hoping for. Scooter put up a better fight than that. She walked over to the machine and turned it off, moving to the side of the room to pick up a small bag of tools she had left there, just in case. No matter how well she tolerated all these machines, Cheerilee harbored no illusions. When it finally came down to it, she could only count herself getting the job done right. She took a hammer and chisel, jumped down next to the only semi-conscious silver spoon, in the absence of any digits, such as the ones the Griffins had. Police had to find a different way to hold the chisel in place as they swung the hammer. The solution came in the form of a metal shoe, which extended past the hoop and had a hole in the tip, which could hold the chisel in place. Typically, the chisel in the shoe was made such a way that the thicker part of the end of the chisel, where the hammer hit, couldn't fit through the hole. Cheerilee slipped on the heavy shoe. And put the chisel through the hole with the teeth. While grabbing hold of the hammer in the same way, she positioned the chisel carefully, aiming it right above the filly's right just under the middle band, holding her right leg in place. A great swing to drop the hammer down, driving the top of the chisel into the filly's leg, striking against her hoof from above. Her spoon had been apathetically floating in the sea of pain till now. Suddenly let out a piercing, if garbled shriek. Her remaining eye flew wide open. More of her blood started spilling into the floor, and Cheerilee grinned as best as she could while holding the hammer. They are just above a hoop. No. Just above the hoop was one of the most sensitive spots in the pony's body, which is why the hoop protected it so well in the first place. She drew the hammer back and slammed it down again and again, driving the thin metal rod further in with every swing. Yelps and cries from the floor excited her further and further. She began to have trouble keeping the hammer in her mouth, but the body trembled so. With the last mighty swing of the tip of the chisel suddenly emerged on the other side of the filly's hoof, and the poor thing whimpered with pain and her blood stained the floor in multiple places. Rush of inspiration, Cheerilee swung the hammer down again, this time aiming not for the particular bulge in the end, but simply the side of the chisel with the metal. Oh God! Struck horizontally. Oh God! The blow pushed the rod down against her hoop, already not attached to her leg in the middle anymore. Super broke off, leaving only a bloody stump with scattered fragments of fruit still attached. Not a gouging cry of pain as the left eye pulled back into its socket, and then suddenly fell silent. Cheerilee frowned as she strapped a hammer and brought her head level with its wounds. So red, she fainted. Come on, not now. It's only starting to get fine. She screamed in frustration as she swung the hoof at the filly's head, hitting her right in the face. There wasn't even a tiniest response, and the pink mare sighed. She quickly started undoing the bandages she had silvered in place, until falling into a pool of her own blood as she slipped off the last horns. She grabbed the filly by her mane and started dragging her to the east side of the room, leaving a wide red smudge trailing behind her victim. A portion of the floor had been slightly lowered here, leaving a small depressed circle on the ground, which had been outside the filly's field of vision so far. Nonchalantly, she threw the filly into the circle, not particularly caring how she landed. She fell down a crumbled heap in the hunter and remained there motionlessly, except for the slight heaving of her chest and the heavy breath. Cheerilee made her way to the glass tank, staring straight into the diamond's eyes, not completely sure the filly still had been used to the right eye. The acid was having taken a heavy toll on the right side of her face. Lily, you let me go. The filly managed to say hoarsely, obviously hearing this dead of her strength. Cheerilee smiled her kind smile. Of course I'll let you go. It's Silver Spoon as well. But only if you can reach her. She broke into a grin as she walked into the wall, pulling down one of the levers there. While several folds opened to the floor and inside the glass walls, draining away the liquid inside. Once it was mostly gone, she pulled another lever. The glass circle got lifted up off the ground until there was enough space underneath for her pony to walk upright. At the same time, the filly's bindings automatically released her. She crashed down to the floor in a small height. Her legs, bare bones up to her knees, couldn't support her weight, snapping two sharp fragments of the bones jumping away as the pitiful remnants of her lower legs fell away to the sides. As luck would have it, the sharp shaft of her right leg buried itself in the diamond's side as she fell into it. And for the 100th time that evening, Diamond Tiara howled in pain, even while trying to overcome the shock of breaking all of her legs at once. As the little stumps she had left hit the ground, the long layer of acid, still there, started biting into her stomach. But the pain paled in comparison to what Diamond Tiara had already been through. And she paid it almost no heed as she tried to fight back the agony she was already in. So just get to your friend and go out of here. Who knows, it might even be unicorn doctors good enough to fix you up. The pony chuckled nervously. Tiara tried to get up, but as soon as she attempted to confront any weight into the dragon shard and bone enough kicking out of her seriously shortened leg, she fell right down again, panting more heavily than a mare in labor. Even if she hadn't been in pain, it wouldn't have been easy to balance on the stumps of the bones at all. For a moment she thought of giving up right then and there, and she was instantly reminded of the bravery her friend had shown every time she refused to push down the button any longer. She owed it to her to at least try. It was a few meters to the pit on the ground, so the light pink filly turned to lift her little legs over her head, trying to drag her body forward. Every time she did that, she felt like she was about to faint from the pain. But she pressed on and persevered to save herself and her friend. Cheerilee watched with giddy excitement, taunting the filly as it stepped away. Hey, almost there. It's taking you so long. Come on, up with the pace. He started laughing. The filly ignored her best she could, and
finally reached a circular point in the ground. She tried to carefully lower herself to it, but slipped and fell, driving the bone shard still deeper into her side. She winced and groaned as she dragged herself to the center of the circle, putting the stumps of her front legs in the front silver spoon in a clumsy hug. Spoon, she just managed to say. Don't sure. The great Cherilee managed to whisper as she slowly opened an eye, the only eye she had. The other pony tried to smile at her friend, but the result was grotesque at best. You'll be okay. 2 minutes go. I reached you. Yeah, about that, came Cherilee's cold voice as she pulled down yet another lever. Headline. Both of the fillies looked up as they heard a rumbling noise coming from a pipe above them, and they saw a familiar clear liquid gush down as they realized they couldn't get to see anything else of her again. Cheerilee had trouble focusing as she ponderously walked towards the backstage area. Echoes of her session with 2 fillies still bounced around her head, and she would be reveled in them. The start of that session had been everything she had hoped for. The middle part left much to be desired. The ending, however, had made it all up for that. And how? She didn't know where they found the energy or the willpower. Those last screams, the thrashing of their bodies and their flesh went away. It's all been just so exhilarating. Cheerilee trembled and shook, just remembering it. She attempted to walk in a straight line, but she just couldn't quite pull it off. Analyzing her own feelings, she realized the sensations rushing to her body were unlike those she'd felt during one of her many sexual escapades she'd taken part in during her wilder years. The little voice at the back of her conscious mind said she ought to be disturbed by this notion, but the dumb part of her psyche was really adamant that it was completely normal. After all, this village had done unto her a great injustice, and she was doing the quite entire community a favor by removing those toxic influences from the world. It was natural to feel good about a job well done. It took the mirror a few moments to realize she'd stopped walking and was now leaning heavily against the nearby stage wall. She panted, drops of sweat running on her body. Taking a deep breath, she finally regained her composure, taking off to round the last corner, separating her from her destination. Almost at once, she spotted the only pony working on the backstage area, Snails. The aquamarine main coat, the golden coat, was oblivious to her presence, not preoccupied as he was by the task of untangling several ropes from a knot. Seeing him there gave Cheerilee mixed feelings about it all. On one hand, he was probably one of the least disruptive pupils in her class. Sure, he was an utter moron, but at least he had the decency not to interrupt her constantly. On the other hand, his latent lack of intelligence gave him an innocent demeanor that Cheerilee loved to break. But the play would only be so long. There simply wasn't always enough time for her to do all the things she really wanted to do. So with a sigh, she shook her head, resigning herself to her original plans for him. It'd be over far too fast for her tastes. But at least she had found some way of connecting him with the events of the play, even back here. Wait, wow, I just fucked up. Okay, where? Oh, Snails, she called it sweetly. I think it's time for you to get into position. He looked around in confusion. Oh, hey, Miss Cheerilee, he said brokenly. The ropes got stuck and I just he began. only to be caught by Cheerilee as she started pushing him gently in a position opposite to the one she used mid from. Now, Snails, you know full well that's what I told you. After you break, you need to hold on the rope on the X, she said slowly, pronouncing every word extra carefully. The rope on the X? Snail echoed. I can already tell. Just a few meters ahead, some point was indeed shot a big white X on the stage floor. A long, sturdy rope hung down from the ceiling right above it. Snails went to stand on the mark without any hesitation and took the end of the rope between his teeth. Cheerilee nodded approvingly at him, and his chest pumped up with pride. It almost made Cheerilee feel bad. Almost, but not quite. She pulled her terrier against the thick wall separating the stage from the backstage area, trying to listen in on the scene. She could barely make out two ponies talking to each other, and even though she couldn't understand what they were saying, it did give her a rough idea of the current situation on stage. For the umpteenth time, she had to chastise herself for drawing up her fun, going too long, and revealing the aftermath of it, as she realized she only got there in the nick of time. If she kept that up, she would mess up sooner or later, and she knew it. She made a mental note to adhere to her schedule more rigorously from there on out, comforted by the fact that she had gotten almost halfway through the show without any major incidents. She closed her eyes as she listened to the sounds reaching her through the wall, her imagination creating the scene outside of her head. She saw Tweety Dog and Applegate quarrel about what they were to do next. She saw King shoot down every single idea her last remaining night came up with, and she saw her finally fulminating that enough was enough. She needed a good night's rest to mull it all over. She witnessed the King's curse the sun for still being so high in the sky. Felt her reach for a rope that disappeared somewhere in the darkness of the stage, and watched her pull down with her might. When the sun fell from the sky, it descended the technician ponies in the box above the turbine. The tribunes doused most of the lights while the orchestra started playing oddly. The King's Lament had begun. Cherilee's eyes flew open as soon as she heard the first notes, her gaze shooting up instantly. The world seemed to slow down to a crawl as the schoolteacher saw a huge spotlight, the sun, come crashing down from the ceiling exactly above the X he had planted. Snails was spotted as well as he tugged on the rope in his mouth desperately, wondering why it didn't work that time. Why it didn't allow him to gently let the spotlight down like it had before. When his conscious thought concerned not letting his teacher and everyone else down during the crucial moments, and so he kept trying the rope. But didn't budge, and the spotlight did not slow down. Moments before impact, both Cheerilee and Snail lowered their gaze and looked at each other in the eye. Cheerilee mouthed the word goodbye and broke into a smile. But the actual words itself was lost in the rush of the music. Snail just stared at her, vision. Why was she smiling? Why was she just standing there? Why wasn't she? Wham! The spotlight crashed down in small pieces of glass, scattering on the floor and flying off into the air. The music hit the crescendo. She surely looked like a slow motion explosion of tiny crystals erupted around the younger pony, temporarily hiding him from her eyes. The combination of the orchestral music and the sudden cloud of tiny glass sprinters were simply too much for Cherilee's romantic soul to bear, and she shed a single tear at the beauty of it all. The world finally kicked back into its usual gear, and tiny pieces of glass shattered on the floor. She stopped playing. Finally, she could admire the fruits of her labor. The form of herself and body hanging underneath the huge spotlight. Most of it having been crushed in the middle down. Its upper torso had hundreds of tiny cuts and lacerations all over it, although he didn't get directly hit by a falling object there. The normally golden coat was soaked red in many pieces already. Cheerilee took a few steps forward to admire the way a small pool of blood flowed between the many fragments of glass on the floor. But one of the crystals crunching noisily under her hooves. As she got closer to the spotlight, started noticing a smell of burnt flesh pregnantly in the air, and it seemed to get warmer at every step she took as well. She walked around the other side of the spotlight and finally realized why. She really had known the spotlight to get very hot, of course, but she hadn't expected the thing to retain the heat quite that long. Snail's entire backside was covered in blisters, singed flesh, and smoldering fur, and she noticed them and was still spreading. The high-pitched hissing around sounded patch of fur, Snail's back suddenly ignited, a small flame dancing on playfully in her back. Cheerilee looked at it with fascination, did not dare to get any closer. She was already comfortably warm, though she was standing a meter or two away. The teaching pony gasped and shot his nails, groaned and slowly opened an eye, looking around shakily, clearly still dazed. Miss Cheerilee, I can't feel my legs. What smells? He said as he craned his neck to look over his shoulder. Huh? Wait. Oh. He immediately saw the small but growing flame, and even he was smart enough to link it to the horrid smell that was insanely his nostrils. Fire! Fire! Miss Cheerilee, fire! He yelled and he tried to crawl away, thrashing his upper body around wildly in the effort to get loose. Because he was trapped underneath the spotlight and with his hind legs out of order, the situation was hopeless from the outset. All he did with his erratic movements fanned the flames even more. In a matter of seconds, the furious little flames were dancing around his body and screaming the upward their hot tongues licked his tender flesh, and blisters and boiled, peered around the flames, and they consumed everything within reach. The fire grew and grew, pulling more and more of his body into a deadly embrace. Eager to feast now that it was set loose upon him. Yeah! Golden Pony let out the ember tendrils quickly, spread over to his face. His vision immediately taken up upon entirely by the ferocious flames. Pain was excruciating, as if thousands of little critters gnawing at him with hungry teeth, and all water was being drawn from his body at the same time. Cheerilee watched in awe as the spectacle unfolded before her eyes. She hadn't expected to show at this stage of her plan, but there it was, and it was breathtaking. She noted how several flames were already burning out, leaving his body charred black, cracks and fissures tearing on his dried up flesh and snails. Desperately he thrashed about. He started hitting himself in the face with his hooves, trying his best to put out the flames burning there. Every hit went deep in prison and weakened pulling heat, but the flames would not be conquered. At most they retreat every single second, only to come back with a vengeance. Snail screamed in agony once again and panted with the effort of his life, flushed before his eyes, lots of blood competing with the fire to see which one of them could kill him first. And the fire won as the superheated air invited the cold lungs, seemingly him and inside his scream stopped. The weeds for air of every breath like his second daggers forced down his throat. His vision started to get blurry and black spots sprung up everywhere. Suddenly, by chance, the plane moved away for a moment. He could barely make it out. He found Cheerilee just standing there watching. Was she laughing? Cole let out a dry, rasping sound as the flint flew back into his face. Aaron sighed, giving out his orange tongue dug in. If he had any strength left in him, he screamed for a moment. His pies popped and melted away. Twins immediately climbing down on the eye sockets with themselves and looking at the side of the skull. He was already too far gone. Cheerilee coughed and sneezed a few times. The smell had gotten too much even for her taste, but she continued watching. The lifeless husk formerly known as snail burned out. A little voice at the back of her head asked her if she hadn't find some water in the case something else had caught on fire. She was too immersed for the feelings to care at this point. Each finally snapped into consternation. The last of the flame died, leaving only the blackened form, roughly reminiscent of a pony in its wake. Panic hit her like a truck when she realized what she had just done. She drifted from her schedule mere moments after she promised herself not to do just that. She mentally hit herself over the head. She tried to brain, trying to remember where she was supposed to have gone instead of staring at pretty fire. And the answer calmed her down quite a bit. She skipped Cheerilee Snip's costume for the final scene, which was different from the one he'd been wearing so far. In the right place for him. She shrugged. She'd probably find it himself at one time. He knew where she kept it. It wouldn't be a problem. She laughed softly as she went down some stairs and get beneath the stage and then headed for the prompts corner. For a moment there, she thought she'd really messed up. But there were only 3 left to go now, and she was still firmly in control. Nothing would be going on tonight. Nothing at all.